you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderfully. It's Thursday, and I'm always so happy to be here with you.
Me too.
Oh, my goodness. All right, folks, it's Thursday, and it's time for the Life, Love, and Money Show. Welcome. If you're here with Summer and Jen, me, and we thank you. So, oh, my goodness. So we have a topic. We really have a great topic. And this topic today is, do nice guys finish last? So the actual question, Jen's friend sent this in to us, and it goes like this. Why does it seem like so many women go for, oh, I have an itch. Like so many women go for the bad boy versus the nice guy. I've heard the phrase, nice guys always finish last, and wanted to see what your thoughts about that are. And do you think it's true? So would you like me to start, or would you like to just jump right in, Jen?
Nope, you go. It's just
Okay.
Summer always comes from statistics and scientific background and clinical perspective. So I always love, because I'm gonna just give it to you with my opinion. I always love her starting first.
Well, here's the thing. We always have so much fun, and we like to nerd out. So Jen and I are really good about like bringing in and kind of combining that fun, the laughs, the stats, the science behind it. So here we go. So I'm gonna pose a question. Are women always really attracted to the bad boys? So what does media show? What do we learn from magazines, television? What we see all the time is the sexy, good-looking, the virile, the dominant man, right? And the same goes with the women, right? So we see the reverse side of that too. So when I think about this, I also think about like movies, because movies are like a huge platform for really just kind of engaging society, showing like what we emulate in society, or what we like think about, or what we, who we're attracted to. They always talk about or show it in movies. There are some prime examples, right? Yeah. So we look at Wedding Crashers, or we look at, I'm an 80s queen. I love 80s music. I love 80s music. You look at things like The Breakfast Club, which is huge, right? Yeah. So when you look at Molly Ringwald at the end of the movie, she's hooking up with the bad guy. But what we also realize about that particular bad guy is that he does have a lot going on inside. He is very thoughtful, and he's meaningful, and somehow they resonate because of there's a core connection there. So, and I think that's important to look at. So it's not that good guys always finish last, or bad boys are always number one, because what ends up happening, per the research shows, women like to be with bad boys for a short time, but who they really end up with in the long term is the good guy. And this is the other thing that the research shows, is that many times when they do these surveys, women show that, or have indicated that they like men that are more assertive, that are more, take like the authority, right? They actually said the word dominance. And for some reason that just kind of hits me wrong. It doesn't feel real good. So I thought, I think it's more of that authoritative kind of, I have a voice, I can set my boundaries, I'm very confident, those kinds of characteristics that really appeal to a woman. But I think that on the other end, there's also those other characteristics that we begin to learn and find that we also really like, but sometimes it takes a little bit of experience to understand that we like a sensitive guy. We like somebody who's thoughtful, somebody who remembers that it's our birthday, or whatever the case may be, or they're just very thoughtful. They leave notes around the house, those kinds of things, or they call you, or they have their own set of values. And we like that. We learn to like that because what we've been taught is, oh, that bad boy is so exciting.
Yeah.
That bad boy, it's like they're exciting for a short time. So, and I like what you said, Jen, early on, like during our conversation on Instagram, which was so much fun, about the degrees of what it means to be good, bad, whatever. So why don't you talk about that? Because I really like what you said about that.
Yeah, it's like I feel like everything we talk about, there's always varying degrees.
Right.
And yeah, so when we think about this whole topic, we can look at it like you're either very nice or you're the bad boy. But as we were talking in our discussion, like we mentioned earlier on Instagram, where we join at 2 p.m. Eastern, is so fun.
Yeah,
Totally, it is super fun. And what we realized though, that there's qualities that each polarized opposite can have from the other side. And so one of the things that I was looking up is that when we look at the nice guy, and going back to the question, we see this whole thing like, well, why does it seem that women are, I don't think what repulsed is strong, not attracted.
Wow.
Not attracted to the nice guy initially, from what it seems like, right? And you know what's so funny, Summer? I did ask some men, like, what do you think about that? Like, oh yeah, they agreed. They did agree that this is true. Because either through experience, even some people that listened and join us every week, they even had experiences. These were men, grown men, middle aged, that they said, yeah, you know what? When I was nice, they felt that they got taken advantage of. They felt that the woman or the girl at the time was always just, oh, that's my friend. And this is where we have the term, I'm in the friend zone. And so, the other thing too is what it comes down to, what I've realized or what I've noticed and when we looked up this topic, is that there is this level of agreeability. You all have seen this, where there's that person that, like, it almost as if they don't have a backbone. They're so nice, but it's just like they're so agreeable to everything. And while, right, it's like, it's not that being nice is a bad thing. Like, there was this other thing that I thought was really interesting, was that I rather, not that I'm a man, but it's like men would rather be called, hey, he's a good guy, he's solid, he's a good guy. But when you say, like, yeah, he's a nice guy, it just has this different connotation to it. Because when you say nice, it's that you're agreeable. It's almost as if you don't have a backbone, you don't have a voice. Like Summer said, women want, somebody that has assertiveness and confidence. But when you're agreeable, what that sounds and looks like, it's like, oh, it's okay, yeah, whatever you want. Well, when should I call you? It's always like, versus the bad boy. It's like, take it or leave it. This
Let
is
me
what
come
it
in here really quick. It's like being that dish rag. You know what I mean? It's like it's like that agreeable person. That's great that you're agreeable, but to what, as you said, what degree? What degree are you agreeable where you're just being that dish rag and tossed all over? Because sometimes all the time, whether you're a man or a woman, you got to take a stance. You got to stand your ground in some things. Not everything. You can be agreeable in a lot of different areas, but you've got to take your stance, because if you're just so, like that wet washcloth, nobody wants that. That's hard to deal with. It's like, bring it
out. And you're so right. And that's what it is. And because whether you're looking at this from the perspective of the woman or the man, and I'm not even getting into pronouns, whatever side you're looking at, the quality and the thing that people are looking for is, does this person have self-esteem? What level is that at? And then do they have confidence? And do they have a voice? Because when someone's talking about, like that person just kind of wavering, it's kind of like, oh yeah, whatever you want. Oh yeah, it's like, okay, well, what do you want? And it's like, oh yeah, I'll do that. There is something that's so, and I'm cringing because like I've seen that, I have encountered that, and it is very unattractive. I wouldn't say, well, I would say repulsive. That's a little strong, but unattractive. Unattractive. And it's because I think subconsciously we start to ask ourselves and evaluate, wait a minute, if you're just so willing to do whatever, do you have boundaries? Do you have like these values that you are not willing to compromise? But when you're just somebody that's just like so agreeable to every freaking thing under the sun, that is so opposite of what you are noticing in I almost said bad guy, the bad boy, where he's kind of like, take it or leave it. I'm like this is what it is. It's like, you see this all the time. And it's not so much that and this is what I'll say. I don't think it's so much that they're it's because they're bad. It's because there's this level of confidence that just shoots out of, it's just off the charts. And it's this like, I have my boundaries. I know exactly what they are. And you're either going to get on the same page or play this game with me, or it's not happening. Yeah. And it's such an interesting dynamic because those boundaries, and it's so funny. We talk about boundaries all the time. When there's boundaries, people have this idea that they're restrictive, but boundaries actually make things so freaking clear. It's this line in the sand, and you know where somebody stands. And when you have that clarity, you know how to proceed. It's when it's wishy-washy. I don't know where. That is so unattractive. And I think this is all this stuff that we're talking about. This is why there's such a high level of attractiveness to somebody that is a quote unquote a bad boy, because that level of confidence, that assurity, that level of like, I know what I want. And here's the thing, they don't care, because I have my share of these people. They don't care what you think. Yeah. It is what it is. This is where they are at. And they're so sure of themselves, whether or not they're pleasing somebody, because that's not their motive. They're it is. And I will even say some people might mistakenly say, oh, that's so selfish. No, is that I think they're just so freaking sure of themselves. They know what they want. And what you said, I can't remember if it was earlier, a few minutes ago, or on Instagram, when you know what you want, then you don't waver. It's going back to what we talk about all the time. Those people, they don't say it this way, but they know what their core values are. Yeah.
But and I have to interject here. Some of them do, because there is such an arrogance in some folks where there is a personality trait where they completely disregard what others want or however others feel. And so you have to discern for yourself what it is that you want. And what Jen said is know your own boundaries. When you know your own boundaries, it's going to be really clear what you do not and do want, regardless if you're a man or a woman and considered a good or bad guy or girl, right? And we're using this not like, oh, they're horrible, but like just like that bad boy, that arrogance, kind of like, we see it as arrogance, but as Jen said, it could be just a supersonic amount of confidence, right? Yeah. So I think that when you get clear with your own boundaries, it makes it so much easier for folks to gravitate towards you who are of like mind, so to speak. Where you're going to be attracted to them, you're going to have your core values, you're going to sync up really easily. But when you're wishy-washy, when you're like that, here's an example. That mole that has really bad edges, and it's like, uh-oh, you need to get that checked because that might be malignant or malignant. It's like, you don't want that mole. You don't want that.
That is such a funny but great analogy. You can imagine that you're talking to somebody. Ooh, you're a little malignant.
And it's true.
You better get that checked out.
It's like maybe they're like not the kind of person you want to jive with, but maybe that person's somebody else's cup of tea, right? But here's the thing.
Not yours.
Not mine. And so I think you'll know when you yourself become clear. But getting back to the research. So as I said, nice guys, even in movies, you never see the nice guy finishing last. You always see him kind of coming up and like being the winner, right? And like hugging with that girl or that guy or whatever, being those nice people where they couple, right? And it's like, here we go. Like, he was the winner. Why? Because in the end of the movie, he became more assertive. He started having a voice, or she started having a voice. Even when Sir Michael on our Instagram page said, what about that girl that, has the braces? And at the end, she's like, well, because they find themselves, they find their voice, they find their own value. And that's something that's really important, is understanding your own value when you go out to pair with whoever you pair with, because that's going to make it so much easier for you. And that's why Jen and I talk about values all the time, because that's your launching point. That's where once you know your values, you're going to be able to pair with that person that really aligns with you. You're going to be able to get that job that really aligns with you. But staying on topic in regards to the nice guy and the bad boys, know your values, know your boundaries. And I think don't be wishy-washy about your own message, because like you said, Jen, there's a lot of women and men are like, oh, I don't understand why I always get that guy, or, oh, that guy's such a jerk, or, they don't really pay attention to me. They don't call me. It's like they're letting things go for 3 days and blah, blah, blah. Well, because your messages and the boundaries you set aren't clear. Because once you are clear, the people that are attracted to that will be driven towards you. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you said that. I think a lot of what I see is, as well, in friends that I've talked to, people that I've observed, that is what I always ask myself. I don't even think people know what they want. Yeah. And so there's no guiding star, there's no North Star, there's no roadmap, nothing. And so they kind of just take what, especially, and I hate to say this, but I'm gonna say it, especially if you're in a desperate situation, like you haven't been with anybody in a while, or you're lonely, it could be a myriad of different things depending on the situation. But if you're coming, especially from a place of hurt and desperation, and I will pause and say, you need to get whole, and you need to heal, and you need to take care of yourself first before you try engaging in a relationship. You're just adding on to the problem. So take care of yourself first. With that said, when you don't define what it is that you want, and you are coming from a place of hurt and desperation, you tend to just kind of take whatever comes across your path. And so a lot of times you're asking yourself, like, well, why am I always getting this person? Why am I always running to this? How come I can't find XYZ? It's a lot of times you haven't done the self-work. You haven't stopped to define your values. You don't have a structure and foundation for yourself, so that when you do encounter somebody, it's very hard for you to discern what is it that you don't like about that person, or why is it not working when you haven't started with yourself first.
Oh, this is
right. And this is why we stress so many times why you have to look at your core values, because when you do that, you're going to be able to make decisions so much more easily and be like, no, that's a non-negotiable. No, that doesn't align with what I want. Because what ends up happening with the lack of having those core values set in place, you start compromising in a bad way. Oh, well, I'll just give that. It's okay. I'll figure it out. Oh, I'll just make it work. And then you wonder why 2 years later, you're so freaking miserable.
Yeah. And then
because you let go of what was important to you.
Exactly. When you start compromising those values, you are compromising yourself. You are not aligning with your vision, your authenticity, who you are. And that becomes, I've seen many people start depressing because of it. So if you're pairing with somebody that you consider a bad boy because they're exciting, because they're really dominant in certain ways, and yet you're not getting fulfilled, it may be because you don't really understand your own values and what you're looking for. You may have you obviously gave out, there is some truth in giving out messages, sending out messages based on what you're looking for at the moment, in the moment. And as you said, Jen, it could be because of desperation. It could be because, and I don't mean, oh my God, you're so desperate. I mean, because you haven't had something, you feel undernourished, emotionally in some way, something's happening within you. So it's a great time. And you mentioned this I love that you mentioned this in the last episode, is do some self-reflection. So you want to talk about that, Jen? Because it was so great.
Yeah. Was I talking about the nugget, or which part of the self-reflection about?
No, I just think you were talking before about, doing an evaluation, do an assessment. I don't know if that was part of your nugget, but
yeah, thank you. I think it was about understanding your level of self-esteem. Yeah. Because we all have worth, but if you are feeling low on that totem pole, that's something that you need to stop and pause. Like a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this as well. There's a lot of times when we're not in a good place. And I recognize this very, very strongly after my divorce. It's like you're escaping, and everybody has their own reason of why they're doing what they're doing. But when you're hurt, when you should be healing, a lot of times we're escaping, and then we're trying to find that healing through another relationship. And so you have to ask yourself, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, where do you value your worth? Where do you value your self-esteem? Like, you have to pay attention to that, because when you don't, you again, this is why it kind of goes back to those core values. You don't have anything guiding you. And then you're constantly asking yourself, like, why isn't this working? How come I can't find somebody? And that's what I think about when we talk about self-esteem, and we talk about our self-worth. It's so important to take that time to understand, like, where are you coming from? Because you're if you aim for nothing, that's exactly what you're going to get. And you're going to be constantly asking yourself, like, why can't I hear this all the time, Summer. Why can't I find somebody? Why can't I just be with a great person? It's because
wow.
Right? I hear it all the time. And I have to ask myself, in my mind, when I'm talking to this person, like, what have you realized about yourself? And a lot of times we're too busy escaping instead of healing.
Oh, yes. I love that. Too busy escaping rather than healing. Too busy escaping rather than healing. And I agree with that, because when people roll from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship and don't really get clear about standing still and understanding their own value, understanding their own personal well-being, what their actual needs are, how they're going to care for themselves and nurture themselves. Because here's the thing, Jen, we don't have to look to somebody who's a good guy, bad guy, whatever, to fulfill our needs. We need to look inside.
Yeah.
Right? So that's number one. And when you look inside and do that self-reflection and self-nurturing, you're looking at your own values, you're looking at your own self-esteem, you're looking at all these different variables, right? To really kind of heal yourself, to understand oneself, to understand what you're looking for in a partner, so the next one that you choose aligns with you better. So to roll right from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, have you given yourself, think about this, have you given yourself the opportunity to breathe? Here's the other thing that the studies have shown, that when a woman at least goes for a bad boy, she is usually rolling in from out of something. And so it's to meet a short time need. So the bad boy gets the short termer, right? And that bad boy sometimes may or may not like that, but that's what they're getting many times, because this partner, the person who rolls into from a relationship into that next bad boy, that isn't clear about what they do or do not want. So they're rolling into the next whatever to meet an instant gratification, so to speak. It becomes instant gratification because they don't really care. They want all those really good qualities really fast. That sexy, that hot, that alluring, that they want those really fast. But then when they start actually being in that relationship and they find that bad boy doesn't call, that doesn't follow up, that doesn't leave notes, that isn't kind, isn't respectful, maybe overly dominant, they begin to question, why am I in this relationship? Or how did I get here? Well, how you got there was you rolled into it because you weren't thinking about it and it didn't align with your values necessarily. So,
yeah, because you didn't define what those things were.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're right.
You wanted that quick fix.
That's what it is. It's you're putting a Band-Aid. You're putting a Band-Aid in it. And here's the sad part. Not only is it not fair to yourself, it's unfair to the other person, because if it's two of you who are broken and need healing, like, ooh, double whammy. But if the other person is ready and whole and in a good place and you're not, it's not fair to both of you. You can potentially create a disaster of struggle versus you having to just step back and heal first. I hear this all the time in other podcasts that talk about relationships, where there's always this encouragement and an encouraging message of make sure you get some healing first. Make sure that you understand who you are as a person, how you need to grow, how you need to heal. Are there daddy issues? Are there issues with people in your family? Or are there childhood stories that you need to revisit and understand? I need some help with this. And we don't stop to do that. And so going back to what Summer's saying, like, we are constantly escaping. And it's not fair to everyone involved, because it's so important for you to become a whole person on your own first.
Yeah.
So that you can recognize what's happening at hand and then get involved with somebody. Because that is like constantly something where, you know, I'm always paying attention to that. Like, and now I feel, because we talk about these things all the time, like I almost just like, oh yeah, your mom, and you know, when you were growing up, and it's just like core story, and you know, all kinds of stuff that are like rooted issues. Where does this all stem from? Like, how the heck did you grow up? And then so, you know, that's something too. Understand where people come from, and it's not always what's happening at the, like, if you get into an argument about like, okay, I hate this example because I think it's cliche, and I don't know how, I take the trash out. So I don't know. I always hear this argument that you didn't take the trash out. I think it's so stupid, but let's just use that one.
Okay.
It's not about the freaking trash.
Right.
That's just the symptom. There's always something, there's always a root cause behind all of it. And so it's so important to find out from your partner, like, okay, how did you grow up? When we talk about this, when we talk about money, but it's like, even with relationships, like, how did you grow up? What was your relationship with your parents, your mother, you know, your father? So there's so many things involved with this. And, but I will take it back to the question about, you know, this whole thing about good guy or nice guy versus the bad guy. And I wanted to mention too, with one of Sir Michael, who's always a wonderful supporter of the show. You know, he mentioned on Instagram that there was an incident a long time ago where he was so nice to this one girl, and she pretty much took advantage of the friendship. And this is where I see also that nice guy gets into the friend zone when he clearly is interested in the girl.
Right.
And so he said later on in the comment was that, like, that's the last time. That's the last time I'm the nice guy. And I think often we have to, you know, as men, you guys fall into this situation very, very often, because I hear it all the time. You have to also, this is why it's so important we say, like, you know, have those boundaries. It's okay to be nice. It's okay to be kind. That's not a bad thing. But when you have those boundaries with certain women, certain girls, like whatever the situation is, you have to know, are you going to be that dish towel? Was it here you were talking about the dish towel? Yeah. It's like, you can't be that. You have to know that, you have to know when to cut it off, because it's not fair to you. It's not fair to you. And this is why we have this term that nice guys finish last. It's because there's a lot of nice guys that allow themselves to be taken advantage of. And then you also have to pay attention. Are you continuously being agreeable to everything, even to the detriment of you abandoning your core values, if you have even identified them?
Exactly.
So it's all to protect you, really. It's really to protect you. And but you know, the other thing I will say on the other when we were on Instagram is that I think it's also important to note that both sides can have qualities of the opposite side.
Oh, absolutely.
And everything is within reason and balance, because I think it's, you know, if you look at the nice guy, if you're on that side of the spectrum, yes, have some element of like strong conviction. You have a voice, you have high level of confidence. Yeah. If you're the bad boy, of course it's important to care about other people and to put others first at some time. So there's always this, like, how do we all come to the middle and find that balance? Because when you're one thing or the other, it's too polarized. And hey, if that floats your boat, have at it, but don't complain.
Right. And I'm going to add to this, Jen, because I think this is really important, and you're touching something that's very critical here. So from like a more of a clinical perspective, so we've got what we call personalities, right? So our personalities are such that they're pretty much, in my view, set at 18. And when you're looking at somebody with a strong personality, I've got a strong personality, and there's certain things where I even know that I need to pull back sometimes because I become too dominant, or I become too, you know, too forceful about certain things, right? In regards to like, okay, I want to assert my view or opinion, right? So sometimes I've got to take a breath and be like, okay, Summer, you got to chill out here. But I'm a strong woman, so that's happened. So I've got to have a strong husband, whom I do, right? Who's like, he's got a voice, he's definitely got an opinion, and so we've got to hear each other out, and that's really important. But here's the thing: when you're dealing with strong personalities, you need to consider whether or not that personality jives with yours, because a lot of times that can be really confusing. It can be really difficult, because then it might break down the relationship. So I think it's really important with whomever you match with, you don't only look at your values, but look at that person's personality and think, is this going to work long term? Because overall, that person probably isn't going to change a great deal. So within that 3 month to 6 month phase, or that relationship, when you first get to know each other, once that 6 months pass, that's when you're going to see that real person. Yeah, that's when you're going to see the real personality start to blossom. So give it that time. And if at that point you're like, yeah, this ain't working, then, make some difficult decisions, some important decisions for yourself. Next thing I want to mention here is our perception. So our perception of what a nice guy might be is really interesting, because I think that it's been in like movies, books, TV, what has been put out there about the nice guy is maybe weak, maybe boring, maybe so that's what's been put out there about that word nice. When in actuality, if you turn that around, it could actually mean kind. It could mean emotionally sensitive. It could mean caring about others. It could mean being intuitive. It could mean all these really great things. So when you think about the nice guy, maybe think about those other qualities as well, not necessarily the boring or the weak, but think about the kindness, emotional sensitivity, those other variables that really define what a nice guy is.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you said that, because the definitions can definitely be skewed if you don't. Yeah, you gotta determine what the definition is, and then realize like, okay, are we using the same terminology?
Right.
Because between kind, good, and nice, they're different.
But the nice guy, when it's put out there in media, a lot of times when we see it in movies, we see that quiet guy who doesn't speak up, and so we think that's the nice guy, when in actuality a nice guy is something very different. So when you meet that nice guy, consider, do you like that emotional sensitivity? Do you like that he cares about others, or she cares about others? Do you like that? And I would say, yeah. But you also have to be clear in your message. So let's do this, Jen, because we're at almost 35 minutes.
I know.
Our nuggets, okay?
Yep.
All right, take it away.
So, yeah, my nugget of the day is, we mentioned this earlier, but I want to suggest that you take some time to just quickly evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10, where is your level of self-esteem? And that's different from self-worth, because you all have worth, but self-esteem is different. And ask yourself, do you feel if it's closer to a 1 or a 10? And the reason why this is so important is because when your self-esteem is low, you have to start asking yourself, okay, well, I'm at a 4. I don't really have a good level of self-esteem. And then start evaluating where are your boundaries, because those are strongly correlated together. And if you don't have those boundaries clearly defined, this is when you start going into the territory of people taking advantage of you, or maybe you find that you're so agreeable to everything. And this is where you start going down the road of like, I'm just not happy. How come I don't feel fulfilled? So take some time to evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your level of self-esteem? And then you can take some steps into understanding like, okay, what can I do to raise this up closer to a 10?
Oh, I love that. Bravo. Yay. And I put those tips right there in the comments, folks. Yeah. So also my nugget of the day is be really, really clear between in regards to the alignment between what you're saying and what you're doing. So saying and behavior need to match, because a lot of times when you're saying, oh, I just want that nice guy, I really want a great relationship, but then you're out there like, whoo, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's just like, you're all over the place and you don't know what your boundaries are and you don't know what your values are. It's going to be very, very, very confusing. And it kind of piggybacks off what you're saying, Jen. That becomes confusing because it gives the wrong messages. And when you give those wrong messages, you are more apt to be taken advantage of, or you're more apt to like really draw in that person that you won't necessarily pair well with, so to speak.
Yes. And then you start going down this other road of like, I'm just gonna make this work. Well, it's not so bad. You start compromising, because I see this all the time. Because I'll look at people's relationships and they'll be like, well, it's not that bad. Well, I should just be grateful for this. And I'm just like, it just sounds like you just gave up a lot. And then you ask yourself, and then I'm wondering, like, how can you not see this is why exactly you are miserable? You're trying to fix something that you should have never entered in the first place.
Exactly, because your values didn't align, but you were not clear between what you were saying and your behavior. So you attracted somebody who could easily come into your life and say, I can handle this. And so that again, it may not be a long-term relationship. It might be a short-term relationship because you didn't ask yourself, take the time to determine your level of self-esteem, as Jen said, or take the time to really determine like your own values, which we talk about all of the time. So going back to this question, does a nice guy always finish last? As a matter of fact, I'm going to add something I didn't add to the last conversation on IG. They don't, because they eventually find their voice. They eventually become more assertive. They eventually get that woman or that partner who they want to pair with. That's a good match. Here's the other thing. They also win because when they pair with somebody who's not clear about their values and they're not clear about, their message or what they're looking for, they don't lose. They just don't get that person that's so confused that they don't even need to be with them at that point.
Yeah.
So does the nice guy finish last? No, actually they win-win.
Yep. Love it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. We're here every Thursday here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, on the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Join us every Thursday. You can also submit your questions to us on any of our platforms, and we'll answer your questions right here at the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. And we're here every Thursday at 11:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, as well as 2:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, Jen, are you ready to take us away?
Yep. All right. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Summer.
Thank you for watching the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and Jen. Dr. Summer Watson is the owner of the production and coaching company Core Women, LLC, is a doctor of psychology, has a depth of experience working in both for-profit and nonprofit in human services and mental health, is a professional coach, seminar host, documentary film producer, and an author. Jen Fontania is a former financial advisor and now a certified money coach, speaker, and has published 6 books. She has worked with organizations such as the Walt Disney Company, Warner Brothers, Target, Goodwill, and the U.S. Air Force. She loves working with women and helps them master their money and mindset to empower them to build the ultimate life without worrying about money. Join Summer and Jen every week as they go live on the Life, Love, and Money Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn.